very narrow margins. It was outvoted by 8 people.
The Gravette Fire Department trying to figure out what to do next after a ballot measure that would have changed the way it collects voluntary dues for those who live outside city limits failed in last night's special election. 5 News reporter Lauren Spencer tells us what changes the department is now considering as it tries to keep up with rising calls and rising costs.
A little disappointed, and I think that there was a lot of confusion.
Travis Harp, director of EMS and Operations, says they placed this on the ballot to make things more convenient. Right now, the department mails invoices to about 3,500 addresses outside of city limits and to only get about half back.
They could just pay at the same time they pay their property taxes.
With call volumes climbing and gear getting pricier, the department says it needs a more reliable source of funding.
The need for more personnel and more equipment are rapidly approaching. And so we're trying to get creative to find ways to continue providing, high quality emergency services to those that call upon us.
That convenience didn't quite catch fire at the polls. The issue lost by just 8 votes.
We can present this to the voters again, but it's a complicated process because being a municipality and asking for fire dues, we have to go through the Gravette City Council as well as the Quorum Court.
Now moving forward, Harp says they're going to change the way things are done, including charging those who don't pay dues.
We didn't want to do, but to offset the cost of providing fire protection outside of city limits, we'll probably start billing for our services to those who opt out of the optional fire dues.
He says it's all in an effort to keep up with demand and keep people safe.
The calls for service are increasing as the population increases, so it's just imperative that we stay on top of it so that we can continue to cover all the emergencies as they come in.
In Gravette, covering news where you live, Lauren Spencer, 5 News.
Those fire dues, by the way, are currently $50 for improved lots, $35 for unimproved lots every year. Let's talk about the forecast now. We had another day of very warm temperatures, in fact, record setting in a lot of areas. Changes, though, coming in the forecast. Scott's here to talk about some rain on the way.
Well, the chance, there's no question about it. We've got a slow-moving, weak cold front that's going to come through tomorrow. We're only going to be falling tonight into the low 70s. In fact, many of us right now are still sitting in the 80s out there. These are your overnight low temperatures. That's what greets you when you wake up tomorrow morning. It's going to be a bit muggy out there. By the afternoon, we're back in those mid-80s for many of us. So not the 90s we saw today, but certainly going to be another warm and muggy day. When it comes to that cold front, it's going to look a little bit like this. This is lunchtime. You got a few scattered showers and thunderstorms perhaps developing out there. They're not going to be widespread, so not everyone sees rain tomorrow. Some certainly could, and by the afternoon into the evening, some of those showers could produce some thunderstorms, and there is going to be a low potential of some severe storms. That chance goes up on Friday as we see a very busy weather pattern, not only this weekend, but continuing into next week as well. We'll break down the very latest information for you here coming up in just a few.
All right, Scott, thanks. A deadly crash slowed down traffic on Highway 412 today in Siloam Springs. 1 person died when a passenger vehicle crashed into an 18-wheeler near the Highway 59 overpass at around noon today. All lanes of the highway had to be closed in both directions for about a half a mile for several hours. RDOT says the scene was cleared by 4:30 today. We're still waiting for details on the person who died and what actually caused that crash. A man wanted on rape charges is in the Washington County Jail tonight after authorities say he fled the country. Prosecutors believe Richard Lim fled intentionally a day after being interviewed by Fayetteville police. They say he flew from the U.S. to Qatar before landing in Thailand, where he was eventually caught. He faces multiple charges, including rape, sexual assault, and grooming a child. Prosecutors spoke with us today about the work done to capture the suspect.
I want to applaud both the U.S. Marshals, the Fayetteville Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Department, and Interpol for locating this man in Thailand and bringing him back. He obviously had no intention of ever seeing Arkansas again.
Lim is being held in the Washington County Jail on a $1 million bond. His arraignment is set for June 9th. Missouri lawmakers approving a referendum today that could repeal a voter-approved abortion amendment. The state's voters passed the measure enshrining abortion rights into the state's constitution last November. Well, today the Republican-led Senate voted in favor of a House bill that would put abortion back on the ballot. This time, though, giving exceptions for victims of rape and incest. The new referendum would go before voters during next year's midterms unless the governor calls a special election. President Trump continues his travels across the Middle East. Torian Small has the latest now on a visit to Qatar, where the president made a major announcement involving Boeing.
The president kicked off day 2 of his trip to the Middle East with a meeting with Syria's new leader, an insurgent who rose to power after overthrowing the dictator Bashar al-Assad. The meeting came one day after President Trump lifted all sanctions against Syria, a move hailed by Arab leaders. The president also indicated he'll consider normalizing relations with Syria and expressed confidence in its leader.
Young, attractive guy, tough guy. Strong pass, very strong pass fighter.
The president later arrived in Qatar, where he was greeted by red Tesla cyber trucks, dozens of mounted camels, and a red carpet. Together, the president and Qatar's Emir Sheikh witnessed a signing ceremony for Qatar Airways, which has agreed to buy 210 aircrafts from Boeing.
It's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good. It's over $200 billion.
The Qatari emir later presented President Trump with a soccer ball representing the World Cup coming from Qatar to North America. In a Wednesday night speech, President Trump praised Qatar for working with the U.S. to negotiate a deal with Iran to wind down its nuclear program. This comes a day after the president called Iran the most destructive force in the Middle East and vowed that it would not get nuclear weapons.
There's a friendly and a non-friendly, and the non-friendly is a violent course, and I don't want that. I'll say it up front, I don't want that, but they have to get moving. I hope the Iranian leaders understand.
The president is scheduled to continue his tour of the Middle East Thursday with a trip to the United Arab Emirates. Torian Small, CBS News, the White House.
FAA leaders went before a Senate committee today addressing concerns about air safety and outdated technology. The hearing comes after a string of delays, cancellations, and even tech issues at Newark International Airport. Problems included a complete radar loss for 90 seconds. The agency says it's working on a short-term fix that includes technical repairs and cutting flights to reduce congestion while dealing with a shortage of air traffic controllers.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is during those 90 seconds, was there a significantly heightened danger to the flying public?
I don't believe there was a heightened significant danger to the flying public. But with that being said, from where I sit, we want to remove all risk to the flying public.
The FAA came under scrutiny this year after a deadly mid-air collision between a passenger jet and that military helicopter in Washington, D.C. McIntosh confirmed a hotline connecting the Pentagon Air Traffic Control to FAA controllers had been offline for more than 3 years. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testifying today on Capitol Hill as well. It's his first testimony before Congress since starting that job. Today, he defended large cuts to his department and his workforce. He also told a Senate panel that as far as he knows, no working scientists have been fired. Among the layoffs were CDC staffers responsible for tracking how successful fertility treatments like IVF are. Well, now that entire monitoring system, which has been in place for decades, is in jeopardy. Reporter Christine Pei has more now on what it means for healthcare providers now awaiting guidance from the federal government.
For patients seeking fertility assistance like in vitro fertilization or IVF, doing research about it is part of the process.
Long story short, my husband and I have been trying to have a family for several years.
Bethany Arnold of Issaquah recently finished her 7th egg retrieval cycle. She knows a thing or two about federal cuts, having worked in global reproductive health for USAID.
We had some research projects looking at infertility in different countries in Africa that got canceled.
And her own journey with IVF has not been easy. After a poor experience at one clinic, Bethany switched to another one, and part of that transition included studying clinic outcomes.
CDC, they have calculators too that determine kind of based on your personal circumstances.
She's referring to this CDC webpage detailing procedure outcomes from assisted reproductive technology, or ART. Here you can find out a specific clinic's pregnancy rates from embryo transfers, plus a wealth of other data.
And they play like a really important role in tracking fertility treatment outcomes, like promoting patient safety and ensuring transparency across clinics.
Dr. Julie Lamb is a reproductive endocrinologist and medical director at Pacific Northwest Fertility based in the Seattle area. Dr. Lamb points out that by law, IVF clinics must report treatment outcomes to the CDC.
All doctors want to do their best for their patients, but it just holds us accountable to a different level.
But the future of CDC monitoring is now in question after HHS, directed by DOJ, slashed the staff responsible for tracking and publishing IVF success rates and other data.
Because they fired everybody who was working on that data, it is not at all clear if that data is ever going to see the light of day.
Sean Tipton is a policy officer for the nonprofit affiliated with the Society for Assisted Reproductive Technology, or SART, a professional group that gathers IVF outcomes from its 371 member clinics nationwide. Tipton says they will continue posting data on their non-governmental website.
So there is going to be some data still available for the public, and I think that's important to understand. What we really have lost here is the epidemiological expertise of the team at CDC.
The timing of the cuts comes as more couples seek fertility treatments than ever. According to SART data, IVF cycles performed at member clinics increased by nearly 11% from 2022 to 2023.
I know the administration has said, oh yes, IVF, we support it. But you can't say that you support it if you're not investing in the data behind it.